In a world where literally anyone can host a podcast, two stoners come together to unite their marijuana and movie knowledge to bring you the latest movie review, as long as they remember to press record. Welcome to the Blunt Movie Reviews.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Travis Aerosmith, and joining me in the cave of 1,000 blunts is my co-host,
Jesse Pena. Before we get started, we would like to thank everyone for all your continued support. All the likes, all the shares, all the subscription, every little bit helps.
And if this is your first time joining us at the Blunt Movie Reviews, we want to give you a little heads up. This is the Blunt Movie Reviews. We're not only smoking blunts, but we are blunt. If we dislike a movie, we're going to be blunt about it. Blunt, 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 blunt. Just seeing how many more times I can fit it in there. We believe Hollywood puts out way too many crappy movies a year. They're just free and willy with it.
And we're not giving out unwarranted positive reviews for just anything. We're taking a serious look at these movies and taking them down a peg or two if they deserve it.
Yeah, trying to save you time so you guys don't have to go watch the shitty movies. You guys can watch the good ones and be happy with what you paid for.
Absolutely. Which brings us to this week's movie, which is 2019's Alita, Battle Angel.
Comes out February 14th, Valentine's Day. We want to thank 26th Century Fox for giving us the opportunity to see this movie.
Travis, hit me with the movie guide plot.
In a world where animatronic robotic body parts are the norm, where the rich and the powerful live in the skies and control the weak and the poor that reside on the ground, where rollerball doesn't involve Chris Klein or LL Cool J, where a girl is built up from the scrapyards and set on a journey of self-discovery to change the world, battling to a theater near you.
Hi and welcome to the Blunt Movie Reviews. We were all set to kick it off with this movie's top cast, starting all the way on top with the director.
This week's movie is directed by Robert Rodriguez. One of my favorite movies that he's done is 1995's Desperado, starring Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek.
Which it's one of my favorite movies of his, too.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, me and my brother had a video cassette tape, and it had two movies on it. Desperado and Tremors, and we watched the shit out of both of those.
Both of those are really good movies.
But, Desperado, it was a good action movie. Antonio Banderas plays a mariachi that his wife is murdered by the Mexican mob, and he ends up just killing a bunch of them. And they come after him. A lot of people get killed.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, Cheech Marin's in it, Steve Buscemi.
That's right.
Very funny cast. And Robert Rodriguez has had quite a career. He's done the Spy Kids movies, the Sin City movies, the Machete movies, the Dusk Till Dawn.
Grindhouse movies of Planet Terror and Death Proof.
Yeah.
Those are both really good movies in their own right.
He does a lot of work with Quentin Tarantino, which I think they're the same person. I think it's a Dr. Hyde and Jekyll situation.
Right, he just takes
a potion, goes out to another set, and makes another mill.
So that brings us to the main cast of this movie, starring Rosa Salazar as the titular character of Alita, who I haven't seen her in much. I think you showed me the movie Chips, and she was in that.
Yeah, she was pretty funny in Chips,
Right.
Starring Dax Shepard and Michael Pena.
She was Michael Pena's sister, right? Is that what it was?
No, she was just another motorcycle cop. That's all, and it turned out to be Dax Shepard's love interest. But, it was a really funny movie. It was a good remake of the old TV show.
But what I remember her most recently was 2018's Bird Box, which just came out on Netflix just like a month ago. And she played I don't want to spoil it, she was kind of an asshole in the movie. She's really not in it for long. And we'll move on to our next actor, which is Mahershala Ali. And I remember mostly from 2016's Luke Cage from the Marvel Universe TV shows on Netflix.
Well, I actually really liked him in 2016 Free State of Jones with him and Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey plays a Civil War deserter because he doesn't think it's right what they're doing anymore. The war is pointless at this point.
Right.
Thinks they're just fucking with people on purpose. So he goes back home to Mississippi or Missouri, one of those two, and he kind of starts his own little revolutionary inside of the town he goes back to. It was a really good movie, and Matthew McConaughey and Ali really did a good job working together.
Up next, I have Jennifer Connelly, who I most remember her from one of the hardest movies for me to watch, but it is a great movie, and that's 2000's Requiem for a Dream. Have you ever seen this movie?
I have seen that dream.
It's a tough movie. If you,
That movie, not the dream.
If you went through anyone who had any kind of drug problems, or you knew somebody who did, it kind of hit you with the sour note. But it's worth a watch. It really keep you off of drugs. It's a great movie. Up next, we have Christoph Waltz, who I remember mostly from Inglourious Bastards.
That's what I put
Right?
too. 09's Inglourious Bastards with Brad Pitt, Eli Roth, and Michael Fassbender. World War II movie. I mean, you got the
Great.
Bear Jew. I mean, it was a great movie. I really liked that one.
Absolutely. I also liked him in Django Unchained with Jamie Foxx.
Oh, that was good. And
That's
Leonardo
very good.
DiCaprio. And yeah, that was a good
Another
movie.
Tarantino, right?
Yeah.
He's everywhere.
Or Robert Rodriguez's alternate identity. Another one I wrote down, he's not in the movie much, but I don't get a lot of opportunities to talk about one of his movies.
I know who you're talking about.
It's Casper Van Dien,
Yeah.
1997 Starship Troopers with him and NPH, Natural.
Natural. I think that would be his wrestling name. Natural Patrick Harris. The Natural.
With Neil Patrick Harris. Casper played Johnny Rico. And if you haven't seen Starship Troopers, you got to get out there and watch it. I mean, it's kind of a B movie, but it's a cool
In all the
action
best
movie.
ways.
Yeah.
In all the best ways.
Now that we got that out of the way, we get to move on to one of my favorite parts of the show. That's when we pack our Glass Twisty Blunt full and smoke a bowl. Well, smoke a blunt.
Like there's one mystery solved. Now how about we hit that blunt? Review.
And this week we're smoking cheese at 23%. So this movie's based on an anime movie, and I don't really watch animes. I'm not much for them. I mean, it's far and few in between that they actually capture my interest.
Right.
But what did you think about this movie?
You know, I enjoyed a lot of this movie, most of the parts of this movie. I just felt that maybe it couldn't quite figure out what it wanted to be, what kind of movie it wanted to be. But on the whole, I really enjoyed it. I thought Rosa Salazar, who played Alita, she did a very good job taking control of a character she wasn't actually there for. You know, all her acting was good, all her how naive she was. She played it off very well as almost like a newborn child into the world. And, you know, it got a little sappy there for a minute and maybe drug on, but the action was...
Oh, the action was amazing.
Fantastic.
And we were lucky enough to see it in 3D, which made it even better.
Right.
I mean, because I was a little skeptical about this movie, because all I heard that it was CGI'd in a real world. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. But what you said about this movie didn't seem to know which direction they wanted to
Right.
go. This is a 2 hour and 2 minute movie, and about an hour and 40 minute mark, you start thinking to yourself, where are they going with this?
Because there's a part in the movie where she decides she's like, I'm going to be a bounty hunter. And you're like, okay, that makes sense because you murder shit hella good. And then she's like, no, I want to be in the roller derby. And you're like, whoa, that's a lot of shit to do in one fucking movie. Are you sure you don't want to make a decision?
Like, no, I want a boyfriend.
And yeah. And then there was a trouble with the pacing. This obviously is something based off of something else. It was based off a manga and then into an anime movie. So there's a lot of stuff that they left out and they just wanted to touch on it.
Well, I thought they did a really good job on setting this up for a trilogy.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
is that what they were doing? Or just that's what you're
That's
assuming?
what I'm assuming, because
Right.
they talked about a bunch of stuff that they didn't even actually get to
Yeah.
in the movie. So I believe that's them just setting it up for a second one. And if James Cameron's involved, I mean, it should only be like 20, 25 years away
Right? Absolutely.
till we get a second one. I mean, that Avatar 2, I mean, some people might still care at this point.
One day, eventually, maybe, it'll come out.
I really did like the camera work and the CGI and the special effects in this movie. If this movie was done 10 years ago, I think it would have been cheesy, would have came kind of off like Beowulf. I mean, it was a great concept.
Good example.
But
Beowulf.
the visual was actually pretty shitty in comparison of today's standards.
I didn't mind Hugo too much, the boyfriend of Alita. They kind of forced him upon her. I don't mean that in a bad way, but you know, she was like a girl just born. And they're like, hey, here's a boyfriend. Okay, here it is. This is just us now. We're just together now. It's whatever. But he played it off pretty well, considering it was like the tried and true tropes of a boyfriend who was a bad boy, who turns on her, but doesn't really turn on her. All that stuff, you know what I mean? They really...
Yeah. Well, this movie had a real rollerball, Hunger Games / maze runner with a splash of Death Race in it.
Absolutely.
Which I like because, I mean, there's a lot of movies that we've seen. They're like, oh, this is just this. They're just calling it a different name. It's a shitty ripoff. It's a generic brand. But I like it. I mean, at this day and age, it's the only way to make a new movie that doesn't have the exact same ideas. It's pretty much combining a bunch of ideas into one. And that's what I liked about this. And like we said, we didn't really know where they were going with it, but it left it open that they can go. It was almost like a build-your-own-adventure story. You know, the beginning doesn't really add up, but the ending does have a resolution.
Yeah, and I didn't... This is probably one of the first movies I've watched with Christoph Waltz in it where I wasn't super impressed with him. I almost felt like Mahershala Ali and Christoph Waltz could have switched characters, have Mahershala Ali be the Geppetto-type character to Alita, and let Christoph Waltz be the bad guy, you know what I mean? And I think it would have been, like, a little bit better, you know, if they had switched those roles up. Because Mahershala Ali, I've seen him as a bad guy before, but he just... he had no personality.
Yeah, no, not really.
He really didn't have much of personality. And Christoph Waltz,
when he did show his personality, it was like he was trying to be Wesley Snipes.
Right.
Yeah. It had a real Wesley Snipes feel to it.
Right. And I couldn't get over the Christoph Waltz. He felt like Van Helsing.
Yeah.
But not as good. Although his weapon was super cool.
So I guess we'll just bring this to the end.
Okay.
Jesse, do you think people should see this in the movies theaters when it come out? Wait till it's streamable at home, or just say fuck it?
I think you should go see this in theater. It was a lot of fun. It was, you know, it did have a little bit of identity crisis, but for the most part, it all worked together, and he did manage to fit it within almost 2 hours. Considering how much content it is in there and all the fighting, it's worth it.
Well, I'm going to say go see it in movie theaters because I think watching it in 3D makes it better.
Yeah.
Maybe it pulls away from the storyline a little bit and feeds that visual receptor in your brain to kind of block that out. But so I'm going to say see it in 3D, see it in the theaters.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know if I'd stream it at home. I really think 3D really makes a big difference because of all the CGI in it.
I mean, her eyes were so big. Like, even especially with the 3D glasses.
Well, it's like Japanimation, anime. I mean, the huge eyes. It's so funny. So that's going to bring us to the closer of our show where me and Jesse get to play one of our favorite games, Reboot Madness. That's when we take a movie from our past and reboot it with a cast that we would like to see, not screw it up.
That's right, kiddos. It's time for another edition of Reboot Madness.
And this week's movie is 1996, From Dusk Till Dawn, directed by Robert Rodriguez, starring George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino as the Gecko Brothers. Travis, hit me with the movie guide plot.
Two criminals and their hostages unknowingly seek a temporary refuge in a truck stop bar populated by vampires, with chaotic results.
So this week we're only going to reboot two of the cast members, and that was the Gecko Brothers, the two main guys. Seth Gecko, played by George Clooney, and Richard Gecko, played by Quentin Tarantino. So, Jesse, who did you choose to play Seth Gecko and replace George Clooney?
Well, I got to thinking, and I haven't seen him in enough movies recently, and I chose Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He more closely resembles George Clooney than he ever did Bruce Willis. So it would be an easier transition, and I think he could pull off the really suave, a Seth Gecko. And
a less asshole of a actor.
And I think he could really do well in that part.
Well, I chose Bradley Cooper. And I think in 96, George Clooney was like Man of the Year, and Bradley Cooper was Man of the Year just a couple years ago. So they're both pretty boys. I thought it would be a good fit. They're both good actors.
Okay.
So
it's not a bad pick. Mine's better. And who did you choose to play Richard Gecko, starring Quentin Tarantino?
Well, I chose Jake Gyllenhaal. Now, I'm not proud of that choice, but I figure him playing a kind of comedic horror movie would be entertaining.
Yeah, he's dipping his toes into becoming a bad guy because I believe in the next Spider-Man movie he's going to play Mysterio.
Yes.
So he would be a bad guy in this movie.
Well, I mean, he's done a lot of good movies over the year. I mean, I don't like the actor that much, but I mean, I like a lot of his movies he's done. I really like Donnie Darko when it came out. I mean, even Bubble Boy was really funny.
Right. Well, I ended up going with Rami Malek, the Oscar Award winner for Bohemian Rhapsody.
He played Freddie Mercury.
Oh, I was thinking back to someone who was a little unstable, and I got to thinking of his first big role he got was on USA Network's Mr. Robot, and he plays a completely unstable person who causes like an internet revolution.
Him and Christian Slater.
It's a great show. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely check that out.
The first season's really good. I'm not too sure about the second.
Second season's okay.
So, who did you think won this week's Reboot Madness? Go ahead and put that in the comments or wherever you follow us from, Jesse or Travis. Or if you have a better suggestion for the two roles, go ahead and put the names of the actors you think would better play those. We want to thank again everyone for listening and everyone who likes, shares, subscribes. You can find me on Twitter at TravLetSmoke. You can also find us on Facebook at Blunt Movie Reviews. You can find us on YouTube at Blunt Movie Reviews. If you want to see a visual version of the show, that's where you'd find it. All right, everyone. Smoke a blunt and have a good week.
Later, guys.
All right, Bob, that wraps it up. Roll credits. Let's get out of here. Good job, everyone. Good job.